Hey, my name is John, and I'm still trying to figure out all this Harry Potter mess. Next is Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix. Things before I start talking about this particular film. I've said this many times, but the previous video episodes, parts, if you haven't seen those, go watch those first before you get to this point. This is like more than a halfway mark here. We're starting on the second half of this entire Harry Potter run. Things that I've learned so far out of all of this madness. The first couple episodes are whimsical children's films for like elementary, middle school kids, right? And then you start getting into darker territory. You start appealing to the tweens and teenager audience, and then you full on get into the young adult area. This is where we've turned the page from the previous film, which is all about tweens and teenagers, growing up and such. We've reached that point now in this franchise where these are all young adults who realize that Voldemort is coming back, who up until now has been hinted as the man behind everything, all of the bad things happening to either Harry or someone else in school. Up until then has been mischievous and just kind of being part of the subplot until the very end where there's a danger that unfolds. Last film we saw very much so in the Chariots of Fire, in the Goblet of Fire, that Voldemort returned, and everybody is in basic deep shit. We've gotten to that point where suddenly everybody has an acknowledgement of it, or at least everybody close to Harry. This is where the film flips. That's where we start. So here we go. Okay, so I will say that this film, judging by current events living in either Europe or especially in the States, currently it is April of 2020. Technically it's Easter right now, though there are things that have come into play this past administration and previous moments before that in the last decade or so in the United States and Europe that are not appealing to myself and to others politically. This film, though I want to say it's 10 years old now, I have found that Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix is probably not, it's not a bad movie, don't get me wrong. It's a good film that builds up from previous ones. I have a sensitivity to this judging against. There's some mirrors here, and there's some echoes of sentiments being said in this film, and most likely the book, that I have problems with. I have to get that out there. So I didn't actually have a whole lot to say. I don't have a lot of footage of me talking when I was reviewing and watching this film because this movie isn't fun. There are very short moments of fun to be noticed and had. This film is way more of a straight to the point. Let's get to it. I mean, the opening scene here is not fun at all. It's Harry just hanging out with it. Not even hanging out. Harry and his cousin and his little goon squad get ambushed by some Dementors, which aren't supposed to be in the regular world. They're just supposed to be guarding Azkaban. They're not supposed to be in the real world doing anything. So a couple Dementors actually go off the hook and go out to kill Harry. Harry performs the fancy Ghostbusters. I forgot it already. Procum Harry? No, what? The Expus Patroclus? The Ghostbuster spell. So Harry performs a Ghostbuster spell outside of school grounds. Obviously, as stated in previous films, that is a big no-no in the magic worlds, especially if he's underneath 17. So because of that, he is expelled from Hogwarts. I use these quotes very loosely because he actually has an emergency hearing because the people at the Ministry of Magic and the Minister of Magic are under the assumption that Harry Potter is what's wrong with today's society. They basically don't want to bring up the realization that Voldemort's back and he's gonna, rule the world and control everything and probably kill everybody, especially Harry and everybody else, and the fact that you got someone in power called the Minister of Magic, heading the Ministry of Magic, with a bunch of judges and other magistrates behind him, don't want to lose that power. You know where this is going. So, they're going to denial as much as possible. Sounds familiar. So Harry has been... last video I said I don't want to see him with his horrible family. He's not 18 yet. He can't do anything about it. So he has to live with these people. I keep forgetting he's not an adult. I don't know what the British standards are. Social services with children, I don't know. All I know is that Harry is still with his cousins. I hate this. Anyway, Order of Phoenix come to say, hey, we need to get you out. And Order of Phoenix is basically a bunch of other fancy schmancy dark arts people. Moody is one of them, which we saw locked up in a chest with, a fake Moody, which was the doctor, took over his role for most of the film. Real weird dark arts Moody is here. He takes Harry with a couple friends, ended up going to Sirius Black's house, which is hidden in London, and that's where the Order of the Phoenix is, and that includes, I believe, Lucian, Sirius Black, Snape is in that group, all these people trying to help stop Voldemort. In the first place, Voldemort's coming back, so the group has to reorder with new and old faces. So Harry is back with HRH. They're talking, they're teens, man. They're young adults. They're not the horn dogs as the previous one. These are actual young adults that take stuff seriously. And you know what? Harry Potter is a lot more serious in this film too. He's much more conflicted because he still has Cedric's death on his mind. And people around him are using that to get him to get pissed off. But Harry isn't taking shit because Harry is tired of just sitting back with those thoughts. He wants to be proactive. Dumbledore and a bunch of other people, the Order of the Phoenix, are trying to basically shelter him. Sirius doesn't believe in that, but the rest of them are just basically trying to hold him back, like the Weasleys and stuff, because they're trying to protect him for his own good. I understand that 'cause he's still a kid, but Harry wants to not be behind that protective layer, but wants to be involved and know what his future holds. That's all this thing is. It's basically Harry trying to figure out who he is, right? So Harry is ordered to go to the Ministry of Magic for a hearing. The Ministry of Magic is shortchanging. They moved up his hearing. These are things that horrible governments and corrupt organizations do. They try to avoid talking. I'm getting fired up here. The way the world right now, I'm a little perturbed. It's been a sensitive thing. Point being is that you start seeing fascism, full-fledged fascism, with Ministry of Magic, which is basically another government that exists for the sake of magic folk in London. And they put Harry on trial because he used the Ghostbuster spell. The thing is about that is that Harry brings up that the Dementors are supposed to be here, and everybody else doesn't believe him, and the minister is trying to just shut him down at any point, which is wrong. He doesn't have a hearsay. He doesn't have an equal say. Innocent until proven guilty. This is not true. Dumbledore has to come to his aid. Thankfully, he gets him off the hook, and the rest of the judges behind them and magistrates figure this out. They clear him, so he's off the hook. Harry goes back to school. And this is where you get the usual lineup changes in professors. Hagrid is out. He's on sabbatical for a little while. We don't get told that until later in the film why. Hagrid's not in the picture right now. And then you basically get this woman who is the lackey for most of the film. Not a Voldemort, but a Ministry of Magic, which is just as bad in this film. The number one thorn on my side watching this, Dolores. I'm going to call her not Jackie O, because she's dressed like D60s, but this woman is dressed with like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window song sounds. It's all proper and traditionalism. She is the prime embodiment of traditionalism. Doesn't believe in anything proactive, doesn't believe in anything actually needed in a real life scenario, especially with these kids in a school that's meant to protect others and themselves in the world of magic. She gets brought on as the dark arts professor, which makes no fucking sense because her entire goal is to shut that down, and she is not put in that position by Dumbledore. She is put in position by the Minister of Magic, who up until this film was viewed as a buffoon. He's just like, oh, I'm following the rules. He comes off as like this guy who's in charge with no real power. He is wavering some power. The minister is giving this Dolores person a soapbox to say whatever she wants, and she embodies herself as the voice of common decency. which no one likes hearing that. No one likes being peddled this bull. I view Dolores as the most right-wing person that's been in a fictional piece of work in quite a while. The Order of the Phoenix believe that Voldemort is after something particular. Something that Voldemort isn't aware of. This is like the little hidden pushing block for the entire plot. You don't know what it is. It's kind of vague. There's no reasoning behind that, but that's what they say. Harry meets Lena Lovegood, which is this very strange, I don't think she's albino, but she's just somewhat disconnected. She's seen death, so she's seen some shit. So she's a little abstract, but believes in Harry and believes what he says. She's an oddball, comes into play as a nice strength throughout the entire film as a background character for Harry. Nothing much besides that, besides saying some interesting words of wisdom to him. The one thing I did know, I mentioned this earlier, is that Harry has become more proactive in standing up for himself and having a voice. When someone is bullying him because of whatever they read in the paper that's based off of propaganda, he has no problem speaking his mind and defending himself, as he should. So it's good to see. The film accents this by using the handycam shake shots, because tension, and then immediately goes back to the still dolly framework. But it's interesting that there's a bunch of odd shots that are handheld throughout this entire film to indicate that type of feel. Little trick being used. So we're back with Dolores Umbridge. She starts interrogating students. One of her methods, because she hates Potter so much, because he keeps bringing up Voldemort, she eventually takes away the kids' rights and the kids' little social things to really just dumb them down into demeaning students. Harry and friends are not having any of that. So when Harry goes to detention next, there's a scene that I just absolutely despise.
Because you know, deep down, you deserve to be punished.
Oh my God! Abused by family, school, and his government. Harry Potter, this is not fair. This is a horrible message. The way that the children are being abused in these films are not necessarily played off for laughs, perhaps so, with the family just being dimwits, but when Dolores has a pen that says, "I will not tell lies," and instead of him writing it repeatedly, like any kid who goes to detention, I guess, it engraves and scars the kid's hand. Now, initially, this was done to Harry. Just Harry. And I was like, well, Jesus Christ, Harry keeps getting a short shaft here. The kid is just an embodiment of a legacy that he has yet to figure out, and everybody hates him for it. Hates him for just friggin' living, which sucks. And this is why a lot of people get shafted, because they get the short stick in life. It's unfortunate to see Harry Potter in these scenarios. Once again, he is not quite 18. He's 16 or 15, I believe, in this one. The whole detention pen initially was just shown as Harry Potter method to try to control him with abuse. His friends notice that, and he says, well, you gotta say something. This is horrible. You should go to Dumbledore with this info, because she's obviously abusing kids. And he's not gonna do it because he's a little pissed that Dumbledore isn't talking to him, and Order of the Phoenix being kind of hush-hush with not talking to Harry about 100% of what's going on with him, even though he can take it at this point, or thinks he can take it. Those pens start being used on kids in general. And this is where Dolores puts down her foot. McGonagall doesn't like it, Dumbledore doesn't like it, but she holds more and more power, and after a while, the Ministry starts going after Dumbledore because he has power over the students. Obviously, he's popular, and Dumbledore disappears before he is sentenced to Azkaban, which makes no sense. Dumbledore hasn't killed anybody. He's being sent there like a corrupt government would send somebody that they wanted to shut up. And that's what's happening here. I gotta call this episode it's political, because it's that there's real life scenarios that are happening at this moment that do not line up until I watched it right now, that I'm not a big fan of corrupt government and such. She has more power. She has more and more rules. Not a fan of it. So the students, knowing that Voldemort is coming back and they realize he's a real threat, and that Dolores isn't going to allow this at Hogwarts to happen. Now that she's in charge, Ministry of Magic is taking over. Their entire school year is messed up because of this. They've decided, okay, we're going to get together and we need to teach ourselves how to be in defense because there's no one here that can teach us. Hagrid isn't here to help us out. So the kids start just teaching themselves. Harry gets the confidence to actually start teaching people that want to listen to him, and Hermione is being the voice of, support. And so is Ron. Ron has less screen time in this film than in previous films. I would say the same thing with Hermione. Equal less screen time than Harry. Harry has become, once again, the main character in this, as you would expect, where we are in this series. The one character that's come into her own more so because we know more of his backstory and he becomes more of a supporting character and not just a joke in the background is Neville. Neville, my man, a boy. He is becoming a stronger wizard. He's become more of a direct support cast, which I'm totally down for. He deserves. That kid is proud to be the son of his parents that also died on the hand of these Voldemort's lackeys, basically. So the students fight back. We get a big montage that seems to last for about a third of the film. Seems that way. This is the shortest out of all of them so far, so. This is when we realize that there's a real-time connection between Harry and Voldemort. Voldemort has more power over Harry, so he gets to show Harry what he sees. And there is one moment where you see Mr. Weasley working at the Ministry of Magic, the Mystery Room, Ministry of Magic, and he is attacked by a snake. Harry ends up telling Dumbledore and people that they trust, like McGonagall and Dumbledore, they get all the rest of the Weasley family because what Harry saw was a real-time attack on their father. Finally, Harry has enough of this lurking in the shadows stuff of not knowing any information. He gets to the point where he becomes a position of power for himself. I thought that was important to note. Snape is now in charge of trying to show that Harry has power over those illusions to try to block off Voldemort's projecting into him, and vice versa, so he can fight him. We see a flashback in Snape's head when Harry accidentally goes against Snape and trying to defend himself, and Snape shows a flashback of how he was bullied by Harry's dad. It's good to see duality in characters. It's good to see something in a different viewpoint rather than have an absolution of good and evil. It's interesting to see the Potters not all good people characters. I don't know how much of that was a short time in Snape's life and he regretted the rest of his life and held that as a grudge, but that wouldn't be the case because I've noticed that Snape is always being yielded at more of like an anti-hero. He's doing what's right under the pretense that you have to be straight and to the point and you're not going to always like the outcome. I don't know if this is the case, but it would be really cool to see Snape being seen as that anti-hero. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. For all I know, he could be a lackey Voldemort. I don't give a crap. But they put so much pretense to the fact that Snape is this dark, brooding character, Batman-esque guy. There's more to that, I believe, that I'm just not seeing right now. There's this weird subplot, too, with Harry and the cute Scottish student. He gets enough gall to, just kiss her and come up to it, but then later on, things are not all as they seem with her. Not her fault. Anyway, we get to the point where Hagrid's back, so HRH rush to his little camp, be like, what the hell is there? And we see that Dolores is already interrogating him, wondering why Hagrid is already out. Hagrid, who is this woman who's interrogating me? I just got back here. I don't even know. He knows who she is, but he doesn't know what the dynamic has been the last 8 months or whatever. Something happened where there was a prison break again at Azkaban. For Azkaban being the most secure location in this entire fictional world, being told that that place houses tons of people of serious murderous content, and Dementors are around and trying to stop them. There is another prison break, and then we see what seems to be every Harriet Bonham Carter character known to man, because she just looks like the same character except evil, which isn't necessarily the case in every film, obviously, that she's in, and she's a cousin of Sirius Black, but she's attached to the Lucius Snape Voldemort clan, tattoo clan, and she gets free with a bunch of other cronies. Harry finally teaches that Ghostbuster spell to everybody, so this is going to come in handy. In this entire film, everything is just going in the shitter. The kids hate where they're living, the adults are in a bad way, the Ministry of Defense is this big fascist government now, upholding their crappy laws and misuse of power, abuse of power. Hagrid then shows HRH the fact that he's got a half-brother giant. He just says, hey, if I get fired, which it looks like I'm gonna get let go for no reason because, you know, power-hungry bitch. Someone's got to take care of him. So that's the setup for later on, which we've seen very shortly. We realize the centaurs are out, and their land is being diminished in location. Where they can go is being slowly whittled down by the Ministry of Magic as well. I'm just getting to the point where they're the Gestapo, they're fascist. I've just equivocated this horrible bull. They've got to get to the Department of Mysteries, because that is where the one thing that Voldemort's looking for, which is the prophecy, which ends up being a physical thing like snow globes in the Ministry of Magistry of Mysteries. I still don't understand the logic that always makes these points. Just like I said, exposition happens at some point, and I'm usually looking at my phone. I totally mess with the whole reason of this, so I just acknowledge it as part of the plot point and move on. But when I try to explain it back and try to understand the reasoning, I go mad because I missed something that my logical head would want to know how happened. So Neville, Lucy, Hermione, Ron, Harry, they go to the mystery center for grieving children. It's not funny. This film is weird. They find the prophecy because Harry has a weird vision of that same location that Sirius Black was put in danger. Well, the other one was a premonition, so this one's gonna be premonition too. So they go over there to help Sirius Black out. Unbeknownst to them, that Lucius Malfoy has been waiting for them the entire time, and he says, hey, no, that's what Voldemort wanted to show you because your mind is weak and vulnerable, so now it's time to kill you. A big old wand battle, which really ends up being the kids being a bull in a china shop, because they're just breaking all these emblems and snow globes. This entire location that looks like a center for glass just breaks and falls apart. There's a point where they find the prophecy, which is a snow globe, in the same location that Harry saw it before, which they were trying to get to. Saves the prophecy. Harry sees a strange portal and noises, and no one else does except for Lucy, who's also seen death, so that's a sign that death is gonna happen here. I'm assuming that's the connection that's going on. There's a fight with Lucius Malfoy, Harry Connor, and a bunch of other people that escaped from prison who are Voldemort's lackeys, and Voldemort himself, come and they get in a wand fight, which is more like a shootout battle. Sirius Black shows up, gets wand shot, and goes into the portal, so he dies, presumably. The special effects were nice to imply that. Harry is like, holy he breaks down to Scotch. What happens? Friggin' Dumbledore comes back there about 11th hour, and then we get the Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader lightsaber wand duel. Looks pretty cool, sounds pretty cool. Voldemort's like, okay, screw this, buddy. I'm gonna, try to do the psychological game with Harry because I've won 2 out of 2 games so far. So he gets in there and he's fighting Harry with some weird, there's a couple weird green screen shots of Ralph Fiennes looking really strange. It's kind of interesting. It's not funny. It looked out of place in comparison to the rest of the shots. And then the usual feel-good movie resolution of, oh, Voldemort, I have family and friends, you'll never know love thing. In most films that would be used as like cop-out. People are saved. And we end on the school year ending once more. And a super, waste of a year, man. Because dark arts, which normally would be taught important lessons, was subjugated to Ministry of Magic's curriculum. Everybody was subjugated to this I don't know how to end this. Anyway, prophecy breaks, and Harry realizes that one of either he or Voldemort are going to live. Someone has to die. That's basically what the thing says. This is the least amount of notes I've written for these films. The shortest film, 2 hours, just over 2 hours. Felt a lot shorter. This film got to me, and I'm watching this in a strange time. Pros, acting is great. There are no longer kids on set, there are young adults, and they make the film easily watchable in that regard. Negatives, I've got a lot, but it has nothing to do with the actual production. I view it's just something that I've just been feeling watching these films. If I bought this set, 6 years ago or something, whenever these films, like a year or two after everything finished up, if I bought this, decided to watch this, and we finally get to this film, I wouldn't be as sore on the subject of fascism as much as I would be now. The last 4 years have been shit. in general in the way of the world. Currently, we're in a location where we have an inept government. We have an inept system in place for what is happening right now. I gotta be careful on what I say because this might not age well. There is no place for fascism. There's no place for totalitarianism. There's no place for that type of thinking and that type of system. They use the character of Dolores using the guise of traditionalism, that straight up evil when they don't realize it. JK was good in writing this type of character in this type of way, presenting it this way. It's very smart. It just got to me. These films are starting to get to me. I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Technically, I think I only have 3 films left, but it's really 2 story arcs. Pros and cons, just throwing them out the window because I was just too focused on the shit that these kids were going through. I really hope that, Harry gets to be an older guy and grows up and becomes his own person. Oh boy, that was rough. Sorry, guys. I kind of just want to attach myself to the first 3 films and be done with it. Yeah, this one's just a little sore. Anyway, got to keep it up. So we have a couple more. We got a bunch more, actually. Next up is the Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I'm sure this is going to allure to the prophecy and make this a little more fulfilled of a story, rather than kids being subjected to political power. So I'm going to end this now with I thought the movie was good. I'm just a little sore from it, and we'll see you next time.